The NATO summit is over now. Has NATO, in fact, ensured their security, ensured the security of Ukraine, or put themselves all on a road to a longer, more treacherous war that may, in fact, lead to World War III, a bigger confrontation, a conflagration, maybe even nuclear war? Could that come? And so we're going to talk about that. But why in the world did President Biden actually come out and tell Zelensky, who he called Vladimir Zelensky, which I'm sure that went over like a lead balloon? Why did he tell him that we'll admit you 1 hour and 20 minutes after the war's ended into a NATO, being a NATO country? Now, I don't think he literally meant it exactly a minute, hour and 20 minutes. Maybe that's something of a joke, but it does show the gravity of how fast NATO wants to get Ukraine into NATO as soon as the war ends. Which, of course, why would you say that, Biden? Why would you come out and say something like that? You're just incentivizing Russia to never end the war. That's why I ask, have we just assured a longer war? Some things you keep your trap shut about, even if it's what you intend. You talk about it behind closed curtains. You don't come out and blather it for the whole world to hear. So what? But then again, uh, Medvedev, who was the number two guy on the Security Council of Russia, deputy chair thereof, who is number one, right behind number one, Vladimir Putin, who is the chair of the Russian Security Council, I might add. And Medvedev is former president. He's been the saber rattler of late. But he essentially says what a lot of other people have already observed, that Russia is effectively already at war with NATO. I don't think he said effectively. He just said Russia is at war with NATO. We're just not shooting directly at each other. And it does appear that America is quite happy to fight, NATO is quite happy to fight Russia to the last Ukrainian. Is that the case? What is happening here, and why are we fighting Russia? Why is America involved in this? Why is it Europe stepping up to a greater degree? Marjorie Taylor Greene is introducing legislation to try to pull the United States out of NATO. We know that's not what happened, but her objective is, her objection is that the European countries aren't putting up their fair share, that America's bearing the burden of the cost and the troops and the risk to our cities at home to defend Europe. And so, that's a case I've made in the past. So if we look at this, let's go back and have a look at a whole picture here. What's happened is that the United States and NATO have assured more weapon systems, more assistance to Ukraine, even though we've depleted a lot of our stuff. So to make up for it, there's plans to build weapons factories in Ukraine, Western Ukraine, including tank factories, German tank factories, and the Bayraktar, that drone that was so popular from Turkey early in the war, although the Russians have seemed to learn how to defeat it for some reason. That is the drone factory they're going to be putting in to Ukraine, and other munitions type factories, which I'm sure anybody that puts factories in are going to want security for their factories, which you wonder what kind of umbrella is going to be there, because Russians have already said they're going to take those out with cruise missiles. That's going to be their number one target, and I'm sure it will be. On the other hand, we're giving longer range munitions, and we're giving the cluster bombs to Ukraine. There's talk about sending them. We're still going to be getting F-16s in time. They're going to be getting ATACMS apparently, and that's going to be a cluster. That's a cluster bomb system, or it has a cluster bomb option with the ATACMS missile. I've shown videos in the past and how devastating that is. But it's also, 2% of those munitions don't explode, and so it's a hazard to kids that may be in the area down the road. But I guess the biggest hazard is the war that's facing everybody in the area right now. Now, there is a prospect that Ukraine could win the war if they move fast and do it in one area. If they can take out the rear areas that support the Russian troops. The Russians use railheads. They don't use trucks. They use railheads to get munitions to their troops, and they hand unload and load the ammo. They don't have forklifts and all the stuff like we do. They if these ammunition dumps that are out there supplying all these troops are taken out, then their troops have nothing to fight back with. That's how Ukraine could get an edge. That's how if they can find a good place to break through those solid Russian defenses. If Ukraine's going to win, they got to do it really soon. They're not going to have the long range weapons, maybe the F-16s, until this fall. So this counteroffensive is going to simmer probably and make some advances throughout the summer if they continue to do so. They've been making slow incremental advances. Russia's actually been making advances up in LEHMAN'S area, though. So there's some counter pushes. For Ukraine to win, they got to break through those defenses, get to the rear of the Russian troops in some fashion. I don't know that they'd be ready to do that with F-16s and without the air support, without the long-range artillery, the ATACMS rockets. But if Ukraine don't win soon, they're in big trouble for the long haul because, as I said before, you can supply them all the arms in the world. There's just so many Ukrainians. We can't supply Ukraine with more Ukrainians. And that's, I've said before, that was what the South ran into in the war between the states. There was a lot more Northerners than there were Southerners. There's a lot more Russians than there are Ukrainians. So if Russia is in it for the long haul, at least seem to be, it does not bode well for Ukraine. If Ukraine don't win soon, they're in trouble. But winning is a whole nother question. What is winning? Taking Russia out of Ukraine? Well, the Ukrainians will be fearful the Russians just hit them again. A lot of Ukrainians want to go all the way to Moscow to take out Vladimir Putin. Well, going all the way to Moscow would probably evoke World War III for real, because the whole purpose of the nuclear arsenal is to protect the existence of the state, not the people, the state. That's the people in charge. You got to understand what they really mean in organizations like that. They don't care about their own people no more than any government here does. Their intention is to stay in charge. So just take that into consideration. And that's true of our governments. That's true of just about any of them. They care more about their own power and aggrandizement. They're not in it for the people. The peoples of the world we're all played against each other. And that's the most unfortunate thing. That's why we need to wake up the people of the world. And maybe we can all one day get together and say, we've had enough of this. But anyway, so I got the Freedom Restoration Foundation. Check out freedomrestorationfoundation.org. Check us out on Facebook. But in any event, guys, so here's what some of the guys are talking about. Like I said, Biden has to tell Zelensky, who he called Vladimir, an hour and 20 minutes, 80 minutes, and you'll be in NATO as soon as the war ends. That's just the greatest assurance in the world that the war will not end. But here's what the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, had to say. He had to say, the war will continue until the West abandons its plans to maintain dominance and its obsession with inflicting a strategic defeat on Russia through the hands of its puppet, Kyiv. He went on to say, there has been no sign of change in their position, and we are seeing how America and its accomplices are continuing to pump weapons into Ukraine and pushing Zelensky to continue fighting. So what's he saying? He said, I don't see no end to this war, basically. And so it goes on that, that's what these people are saying. That's how they see it. Medvedev, he said this, what does it mean for us? Everything is obvious. The special military operations will continue with the same goals. He says, we're going to keep doing this with the same goals that we had before. And what were those goals? Originally, they were planning to take over all of Ukraine, but they've taught different goals at different points in time. So he's not really elaborating on that. So, like I said, this whole thing is very, very iffy right now. Stoltenberg, he's the head of NATO. This is what he had to say. He said there are no risk-free options. And he was asked about, would this put NATO closer to war with Russia? He says, no risk-free options for NATO allies either. But there are bigger risks if President Putin wins. He says, because then the message will be when he uses military force, when he violates international law, when he invades a neighbor, then he gets what he wants. That's exactly what's important for NATO allies to support Ukraine. It would be a tragedy for Ukraine if President Putin wins, but it would be dangerous for us. It will make us more vulnerable. I'm just showing you side versus side here. I'm not taking sides here. I'm just bringing you what each side has had to say about this. I'm trying to stay out of the him and the hers, the its and that's, and just show you what they're bringing to you, what they're saying. But it all boils down to this. It boils down to a longer war. This boils down to a situation where it ain't going to end easy. There are no easy ends. I've made a special video on how does this war end. There are no easy wins. It's all going to be ugly all the way down, however it comes out. It's already ugly. There's nothing pretty about war at all. Or special military operations. Military operations, when people start pulling triggers, are very unfortunate, however they take place. One has to defend oneself. And sometimes one sees defense as offense. They have their perspective in Russia. They have their perspective in Ukraine. Each has a different perspective. I've been to Russia. Russians lost a lot of people from the invasion of the Nazis. Now watch what I say on here. They lost a lot of people. And that is a motivation for them because they fear invasion from the West. I don't think the Europeans of the day would be much inclined to try to invade Russia proper. But they might let the Ukrainians do it. Now, the Ukrainians would probably jump at the bit for the chance to run up the highway like Prigozhin was doing and just not stop. But that would really put the world at risk, it would seem. So, I don't know, guys. What I can say is this. I don't have a crystal ball in what's to come, but we are in testy times. And if you don't think this means you should be prepping, I don't know what you're thinking. I say, get your food, pile it high to the rafters, save things, get seeds so you can grow food, get water purification devices so you can purify water, go to the big box stores, buy the beans and the rice and put them in the evacuated bags with some kind of oxygen absorbers. And then you might consider the long-term food storage stuff I talk about here a lot. You can go to prepwithgreg.com and get specials on long-term food storage. You can also go to there and click on the My Patriot Supply logo when you go to prepwithgreg.com, and you will find water filtration equipment, or check my video out on many means for purifying and sanitizing water. You should have to do it with plastic bottles and things like that. So there's many options available to you. I got the videos on eating from the weeds and the trees. I got videos showing you how to garden and get truly market for seeds. And maybe I'll be selling worms again one day. So these are all things you need to be aware of. These are all things that you need to practice. Go camping. I've said it many times. Do canning, gardening. Get yourself in shape physically, mentally, and spiritually. Be centered. You be one with your creator if you at all can. Highly encourage you to be one with your family, to share things, and don't ever forget to tell your loved ones you love them, because you never know, just from the everyday vagrancies of life, when your last chance might be. I went to a funeral of a good friend who was much younger than me, probably about 10 or maybe 15 years younger than me. About 15, it might have been 13 years younger than me. He passed away. He had 2 teenage boys. Very sad, bright young men. Helped me out a lot with a lot of the rocket work I used to do. So I'm going to show you something. One other thing you need to consider. Consider what's happening here with the finances of the world, with our dollar, considering the BRICS currency coming on, considering the price of gold is going up. I highly encourage you to do this. Go in here and check the link below to Defy the Grid. It is defythegrid.com. And you check my link to it, use my code, and come in here and buy yourself some gold backs or gold coin or silver coin. These are the gold backs. This is currency that spends like dollar bills. It's just a minute amount of gold, which is more, what do you do if you walk in a store with a gold bar to pay for a haircut or a can of beans? It goes too valuable. But when you got it already printed out in these small foils, it's very doable. It's very handleable this way. You can also get silver coins, gold coins, all these things here. It's all available, and they got a special deal here. So you can get the old coins, you can get new coins, all kind of stuff. But the cool thing is they have a deal on here that if you find a cheaper price, they'll either beat it or meet it. It's part of their deal. Anyway, just check that out. But take care of you. Mainly, your ability to secure water for your family, your abilities to defend your family and feed your family. Then consider stuff like that. Anyway, my friends, thank you for watching. Eyes wide open, head on a swivel, and Greg out.